Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday we're recovering a footstool. See you in a minute. Now, since my wife's had a hip replacement, she's coming along fine, but she can't quite lift her legs up, or is not as comfortable lifting her legs up onto the stools on the chairs we've got in the lounge at the moment. But we've got a small footstool in the conservatory that suffered a bit from sunlight and age, so I'm just going to take the cover off that and recover it, see how we get on with that. Let's just have a look at the stool itself. It's slightly weird in the way it's gone. It seems to have suffered more. It hasn't actually faded as so much as gone darker on the top. The material's gone slightly odd, but there's some pins all the way around holding the covering on. There's a bottom on it which needs to be taken off, which covers it, just like a fabric there. I'm going to get those pins out. While we're about it, we'll just give these feet a bit of a clean up and a wax because they're dry. We've got some material from the local scrap store the other day. It's wool. Paid the princely sum of about, I think it was £1.70 for it. And there's more than enough to do that, just to cover it with. And one of the first things I do with anything like this, before I start, is to photograph it, because if you've got a memory as bad as mine, you can't remember what it was like in the first place. And particularly with things like the corners, where you've got fabric to sort out, to pleat and fold properly, it means you don't forget how it all went together again. Particularly with things like complex, electrical goods or anything, car parts, bike parts, anything like that. To be able to take the photograph in the first place and have that record of what you'd started with is invaluable, and something that has come about from effectively digital cameras that are instant. First job will be to get these pins out. I tried with the pincers that I'd normally use with the little pry bar, but these are far too small. So I've delved into the modelling kit and found these Xuron cutters. Use them for cutting railway track normally, but they're fine enough to get underneath the heads and hopefully, yep, be able to prise out the pins. It's got all the little tacks out the bottom of that part. You can see there the original colour was closer to a dark blue than a almost white. So that's the bottom part. That's revealed a row of staples underneath there to hold the main fabric down. So I'm guessing a screwdriver of some sort to get under those. Yeah. Pull those out with the screwdriver and the pincers. Now, next to tackle are the studs that are around the feet. I want to try and avoid any damage if I can to them, but I'll adopt the same principle, trying to get up underneath them with something like that. Yeah, they don't go in that hard actually. Just gently lift those out, and there's actually a tack underneath them as well. So they're only cosmetic to hide the pins that are the same as the other ones underneath in the fabric. Now that's taken all of the pins out everywhere. That should then give us top removed. And there we go. There's a pad on top which isn't in too bad condition. I'll give that a vacuum over. Got the legs that we can clean up, but what it's also given us is a template for future use. So we can now study that a bit, cut out exactly the same shape in the new material, and know that we've got a fighting chance of it fitting back again. Just tidy the legs up while I'm waiting to get the other stuff sorted, and then it can be drying off and going off before while we do all the fabric parts. This is a brew from a friend of mine whose wife makes her own from, she keeps bees, so she's got the wax, beeswax and lavender. Just put a layer on it just to feed the wood a bit. Suffered over the years, again, wrong environment. It's been out in the conservatory in very hot sun. Just takes all the oils out of everything in there. Hopefully that will bring it back a bit. Brings a bit of colour out in the wood at last. You can see the difference there between the two legs. None of this is particularly high quality, and again it's the usual case that you could probably have gone out and bought a new one fairly easily for not much money, but that's not really the point of the exercise. It's much more satisfying to actually repair and bodge up and make your own things. Buffed up nicely now with a bit of a sheen on it. Much better than they were before. Now onto the fabric top. I'm just transferring the, I've ironed this flat. I'm just transferring the outline now onto the other fabric so that we've got a pretty much identical starting point, which should help. Don't know why it is, but other people's gadgets always seem more interesting than yours. This is my wife's chalk pen. It's a very, very tiny little serrated wheel that's in a tube that's full of chalk, and when it runs along it just leaves a little white dotted line. Brilliant thing. I can't really think of any use for it in woodworking, but got to have one anyway, I think. But that leaves us with a pattern underneath that we can then cut out. Something quite satisfying about the scrunch of a nice sharp pair of scissors on fabric. Perhaps I should have been a tailor. And there we have it. That now should, in theory, fit nicely on top of there and have all the requisite cutouts for folding and pinning underneath. So what I'm going to do now is get the underneath of the top piece backed up with some heat and bond fabric. It's just like a weave of, I presume it's nylon or something, that you iron on, and it just gives a little bit more support to the fabric. Now my wife's just ironed the backing on that's got an adhesive on it which just grips on and gives it a bit more support. So that will go on the top part alone, just to stop the wool getting too damaged. So all I've got to do now really is centre it up and then replicate the way it was put together before. And again, having got all the notches copied over, makes it relatively easy to get it in the right position. So fold that under, tuck that into there, do the first one, and then we can tighten it up from there. One of the problems is that the bounce you get from the rubber on the top, you don't get a particularly satisfactory smack with a hammer. Yeah, that will look nice. Just tacking the corners first with a single tack till I know it's all okay. Bit of a fiddle to get it all to fit in, but seems to be going in okay. Sure, all the upholsterers out there will be having kittens at the moment, but they needn't fear for their livelihoods from me, I can assure you. Now I've got the corners tacked in with a couple of tacks. They're not quite as tidy as the original, but that's because the material, the wool, won't fold quite as nicely as this original material will. But I'm going to try a bit of steam on it in a minute when I've got the rest of it done. I'm just going to go around now and staple up the last bits on the sides before we put the base on. Just put a bit of tension on the material. Okay, nice and tight. Just put the finishing pieces on the corners. Again, I don't want to get those damaged, so I'll have a go with the rubber hammer first on those. And then all we need to do is put the covering on the bottom. It just covers most of the base. Put the little pins back in that came out. And we're just about there. As I say, I will just go around it with the steam iron just to try and get rid of some of the bulk that's in the corners. There we have it. Job done. A little bit of work, as I say, just to try and get that corner a bit tidier with a bit of steam. But that's now finished the stool, ready to go back and take its place in the lounge. Well, I hope that was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week when we'll find something else to make or repair. See you then. Bye.